Okay guys, today we're going to look at back attacks, specifically underhook Kimura, and so I'll explain more as we go what that is for those of you who don't know. And then let's start first with a primer on why the back. So when I'm on Jack's back and back mount, I have two hooks in my legs, and most typically I want to choose what's called a seatbelt grip, where I've got an overhook and an underhook. So I'm over his shoulder, I'm in his armpit, and then I'm just holding my wrist with a thumbless grip, and I'm pulling his torso to where his back is on my chest, and I can really control him. This is doing a couple of things. If Jack tries to turn his torso away from me, I can go ahead and turn away. I can pull him in this way using the back side of my arm here. If he turns the other way, I can use the front side of my wrist here. So I'm able to affect him and also connect his neck to his arm. So this diagonal connection is important for that. So let me back up. When I'm in this position, he can bring his hands in and hand fight with me, and he can separate my grips and get my hands away. So it might be advantageous, instead of having my hands here, to tuck them into his armpit, and I configure for my grip. This is good for ride time, for events like EBI, where you're ranked on back control, the time that you're holding onto the back, right? So when we're in the back, a lot of times we will fall one way or the other. Sometimes the person on the back initiates it. Sometimes the person who has their back taken initiates it. Sure. All right. So we have systems for this back control, and every system is going to have inputs, throughputs, and outputs. So everything starts with inputs. So that's what we're looking at today. Inputs for underhook Kimura control. If we end up falling to this side, which is typical in Jiu-Jitsu, that's great, because my right arm is already on Jack's artery. So if I start trying to initiate a rear naked choke, he's pinning my bicep to the mat into his artery. He can alleviate that if we have our overhook on this side by falling to this side, right? So now he has a lot more room to move his head around, and his neck isn't being wedged to my bicep. So for that reason, sometimes you'll hear people say that this is the strong side and this is the weak side. I don't like that, because that implies that one's inferior or one's superior, and that's not necessarily the case. You can have a robust game from underhook side, and that's what we're going to look at today. So let's start with the inputs. How can I get my hand grips in a sequence to where I can, like swinging on trapeze, I can hand off from one position to another and advance my position? So when we're here, Jack is intuitively going to bring his hands up to my hands to try to defend, right? So this is how we're going to start. So I start with overhook, underhook, and seatbelt grip, and we're here. His hands come up to defend. My left hand, the one that's in his armpit, is going to circle and cup and control his wrist and pull his wrist to his core. Once I've done that, I'm going to strip this top grip. I'm not going to make a big pronounced jump from one side to the other. When I'm here, I'm going to remove and reinsert. When I reinsert, I'm going to grab his wrist and grab my wrist. I'm going to fall to my left elbow, and my feet are going to shift to the outside of his hip line like this. My outside leg comes in and cradles him in this position. So I'm framing across his neckline, and I'm pulling him in closely with my knee here. I can go to a body triangle, but for training purposes, we're just going to go to this position called the stomp, where our feet are stomped up in this position. All right, so let's look at that a couple more times. Seat belt, overhook, underhook. His hands come up to defend. My left hand will circle. I'll catch his wrist and pull it to his core. Then, put your other hand on my wrist. I'll strip this behind him. I'll reinsert it. I'll grab his wrist, my wrist. Then I do two things simultaneously. I initiate falling to my left elbow, and I shift my feet to the outside of his hip line. So this bottom leg goes across. I can actually hook my instep of my toes, my shoelaces, on his far thigh, and then stack my feet up in the stall. So this is the finished the finished product of where I'm going to end up. One last time. Hooks in, overhook, underhook, seatbelt grip. His hands come up to defend. I circle, take control of his wrist. I don't want to be right where his wristwatch will be. I want to be up a little bit, because I need room when I strip this hand and reinsert it to grab his wrist, grab my wrist, fall to my elbow, shift my feet to the outside of the hip line, and we're here. This is underhook Kimura control. Any questions? All right, let's pair up a little work. Let's practice.